Alright, well hi everybody, and I am Michael Buckoff, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass a Toefl iBT. And as you can see on the title of this live stream, I will be focusing in 3 specific areas. Number 1, I will talk about how to get over 110 on the Toefl iBT exam. The second thing I will be doing is just business. I will be enrolling students in my online Toefl course. I have one student from Iran today. I will enroll this student in my online Toefl course in this live stream video, and then finally I will score at least 2 independent and integrated speaking practice tests. So that's kind of what's going to happen during this video. Now meanwhile, anyone watching at YouTube, you guys can certainly ask any questions that you want. You can ask them in the chat next to the video, and periodically as I'm doing this live stream broadcast, I will check for your questions as I go through the video. So that's kind of what's going to happen. Alright, so the first thing, I'm going to go to my email, and I'm going to the first question of the day, really. So the question was given by an international student. And I'm going to go ahead and go over, I'm going to open up my Microsoft Word here, and I will do a screen capture in just a minute. Okay, so I have the question here. I want to make the font a little bit bigger. I want to make it bigger so you guys can see it when I go to screen capture. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and delete the, it's going to go dark for just a minute. Now I'm going to add the screen capture. Alright, so yesterday, if you guys want to check out my live stream, somebody asked me a question. I get this every now and then, how to get a score 30 out of 30 on the speaking, and yesterday I spent about 15 minutes just focusing in that area. So this student here, Gyang Ha, requested the answer, and this comes from Quora.com. How do I get 110 out of 120 on the Toefl iBT exam? Right? So this is a tough question, but I will give you my feedback. I will give you my comments on how this is possible, and once I'm done with the video I will post this over at Quora for this specific student, because this student may not know to go to my YouTube channel to get the answer to this question. So my first question really is, the first question I will ask a lot of people is this a reasonable goal in the first place? So for many students, believe it or not, it's not even possible in many cases to get over 110, and most students don't even need to get over 110. I just talked to somebody yesterday. This student would be more than happy to score over 80. Some students need over 100, and depending on what kind of school you want to go to, you may need to get higher than that. So that's really the first question, is make sure when you're setting goals, your goals are reasonable. Now, if you've been using English for 10 years, right? So you're comfortable speaking English. You can watch TV and understand what's happening in English. You can watch the news. Maybe you spoke English in your home in another country. If you've been using English for 10 years and you feel that your English is pretty good, then this is probably a reasonable goal, right? Now, if you just started studying English over the last 1 or 2 years, it might not even be reasonable to try to get this high of a score. So remember, I'm going to give you the 5 to 10 rule right here. The 5 to 10 point rule basically says something else to think about it as I give comments here. The 5 to 10 point rule says is typically as you're taking the TOEFL exam or as you're doing your TOEFL preparation study, you can probably improve your score about 5 to 10 points higher for each month that you study. And typically, as you get higher in your English proficiency, the rule goes to the 5 point per month rule, not the 10 point per month rule. So what does that mean exactly? It means that if your TOEFL score right now is around 60, which is about 50%, right? It's probably pretty easy to go from 60 to 70 or 70 to 80. You can probably do that in a period of 2 or 3 months. However, once your score is at 90 and you want to go to 100, it's probably going to take you a lot more work, I think, to get to that level. So that's something you want to think about. So the 5 to 10 point rule, and when you're over 100, wow, it might only be 2 points or 3 points you might be able to score in a given month. So obviously, as you get higher, it becomes more difficult to make improvements because the language issues you have are quite stubborn, and it takes time to solve those issues in order to score higher. And even there is some element of luck involved, I think, in getting a high score. You got to get lucky on a few answers. Sometimes during the reading and the listening sections of the test, I've taken the TOEFL myself, and sometimes there's like A or B, or there's C or D. There's like two answers which are very similar, and sometimes you have to make a guess on which one you think is the most correct out of the two answer choices. So it does take a little bit of luck also. Now, having said that, having talked about is this reasonable, and then giving you the idea, if you have 10 years or more of English study, then it's probably a goal that you can set, and remember the 5 to 10 point rule, right? Okay, so the first thing is, in order to get over 110, I think, one of the things you want to do right away is to complete a TOEFL level practice test, or you can take the actual TOEFL exam. So you need to take a practice test. Even if you took one a year or 2 years ago, I think it's a good idea to take either a practice test or the actual TOEFL exam. Now, of course, if you take the TOEFL exam, it costs $200. If you take a TOEFL level practice test, there's a lot of websites out there, and in my online TOEFL course, I contract with a company called Score Nexus, and they actually offer realistic 5-hour full-length iBT practice tests. So you should take a practice test or the actual TOEFL exam. You want to do that. You need to see what your baseline is. Where are you right now? And specifically, what is your overall score? And then what are your subtotal scores in the reading, listening, writing, and speaking and writing sections, right? You want to do that. Now, number 3, once you've done either the practice test or the actual exam, my recommendation is discuss your results with me. I'll use my name, Michael, and you can email me right here. This is my actual email address. Now, when you discuss your results with me, you want to be very specific here. You want to tell me, first of all, what your practice test score is, including the subtotals and the reading, listening, speaking, and writing, or you can send me your actual score report from the official TOEFL exam. You can send the score report to me. I can take a look at it and let me know. Say, hey, Michael, here's my score report. Here is my practice test results, right? So I need to see what your overall score is, what your subtotal scores are in the reading, listening, writing, and speaking. And then you tell me that you want to get over 110. Remember that I'm not going to remember this particular video right here, so you need to give me some context. You say, hey, Michael, I want to get over 110. Now remember, if there's any specific requirements, any subtotal requirements, for example, in speaking and listening, you need to let me know that. That's very, very important. For example, if you're required to get 27 or 28 on speaking, or you need to get 28 on writing, or something like that, you must absolutely tell me that, because that really makes a big difference in what you do and how you study in order to get over 110. Right? So you discuss your results with me. Then, this is my recommendation, right? As you're doing, I think, these steps 2 and 3, you need to get as much exposure to English right now as possible. This is very important. To get over 110 is not something you're going to do by luck. You really need to have a lot of contact with English language. This is very, very important. So you need to focus on getting as much exposure. How much exposure am I talking about here? Let me just give you an example of a week, 1 week of your own time, which will have a good impact on your English language abilities. How about 3 or 4 2-hour movies? Watch each week. 3 or 4 2-hour movies. That's a good start. How about reading every day? You can read newspapers, magazines, and books. Make sure you're reading about 45 minutes every day, and then you're doing the actual watching some movies. That's very good for your speaking and even your pronunciation and your listening, of course. So make sure you're getting as much exposure to the language as possible. Now, what I'm going to do now is to give you some general tips. Some of you are already using my online TOEFL course, and what I want to do now, I will explain how you can use my online TOEFL course to get higher than 110, right? Now, in just a minute, let me do one more thing here. Okay, I'm going to go over to Firefox for just a second. And I'm going to go to my website. I'll just show you a quick glance at what it looks like. So, actually, I have, in my online TOEFL course right now, I have more than 700 vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, reading, listening, speaking, and writing lessons. That's how many I have right now. I have a whole bunch of lessons to help you improve. I call it the 7-step system to pass the TOEFL iBT. Okay, so now let's take a look. Okay, here we go. So going into my website right now. And even today, I need to add somebody to my course. So what I'll do right now, I'm going to show you what the whole thing looks like, first of all. But what I recommend, first of all, if you look at it, I mean, I have a whole bunch of lessons here. I have over 700. So you can look at, you can see here, Step 1 represents my vocabulary lessons. I recommend 8-week study time. The second section of my course focuses on improving pronunciation, and this is very important. You need to do my pronunciation pretest right away, and you go through all those recommended lessons. Then you can move over to the grammar, which is step 3. So my recommendation, first of all, is to go through the vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar lessons first. Complete those first. That gives you the backbone of the English language and gives you the structure and the pronunciation and the vocabulary that you need in order to excel in all areas of the test, right? So that's really the first thing there. So that's kind of what I'm recommending right now. So if we continue, my next recommendation, it'll probably take a month or so to complete those first 3 sections of my course. Then I recommend that you complete step 4, which is listening. You'll notice in the listening I have a lot of strategies and skill building lessons there. There's over 40 listening practice tests, and then there's more tips and tricks on how to improve listening skills for the TOEFL exam. You can check all that out. And also step 5, which is reading. Now, reading is also important. The main thing that my website will help you do, which is very important for getting over 110 on the TOEFL, is I help you improve your reading speed from 100 to 350 words a minute. Which means when you get to the end of the reading section of my course, you can look at this one reading practice test on dams. You can read the passage in 60 seconds, then you answer the comprehension questions and you score over 60% on that. And that's telling you that you have a reading speed of 350. Now, a lot of TOEFL courses don't even address reading speed, but remember that my purpose, the reason I designed my online course, it's not just to help students get a high TOEFL score, but I want them to have very, very advanced academic English language abilities. A lot of the students who take my course, many of these students want to get undergraduate, graduate, and even PhD degrees here in the United States or in other English-speaking countries, right? So they need English. They really need to improve their English. And improving reading speed will help you on all areas of the TOEFL exam. Not all, but it'll help you in the reading, obviously. It'll help you get through the reading passages faster during the speaking and the writing sections of the test. You absolutely have to be able to read faster if you want to do better on the TOEFL exam. So you should go through all of these speed reading tests and take the comprehension quizzes. But we're not done with the listening and the reading sections. Now there's another thing that you can do here when you're looking at the actual listening and the reading parts of my course. But let me go back to what I've been saying here. So I'm going to go back to screen capture here. And I want to update the tips that I'm putting here. So what I've said so far is as you go through my online TOEFL course, or you can use whatever course you want, but I recommend first of all spending time study vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar first. Really improve your academic English language proficiency in these three areas. That's first. Now the next step, and if you're just joining me watching this particular video, I'm addressing the first question of the day, which is how to score higher than 110 on the TOEFL iBT exam. So your vocabulary needs to be very high. You have to have really good pronunciation and excellent grammar. Right? So some of you might be saying, hey, well, Michael, I don't care about grammar. There's no grammar section during the TOEFL iBT exam, and you are wrong. You couldn't be more wrong. Your grammar is evaluated during the speaking and the writing sections of the test. For the TOEFL iBT exam, grammar is more important than ever because they're actually looking and evaluating your grammar within the context of your speaking and writing. So you need to be using a combination of both basic and advanced grammar as you're doing the speaking and the writing tasks during the TOEFL iBT exam, right? Then, once you've done those three, you can complete the listening and the reading sections of my course. And I'm going to give you another tip here. In addition to answering the comprehension questions in the listening and the reading sections, you should be focusing on your note-taking. And you got to start somewhere. Your note-taking, most likely, like many students, it will be horrible in the beginning. That's okay. You got to start somewhere. So as you're doing the listening and the reading practice test, I recommend that you write notes, you take notes, focusing on the main and the most important supporting points of those listening and reading passages. And then, each week, you should be writing 3 250-word summaries. You should be writing summaries of the listening and the reading passages. Why are you doing this? Obviously, you want to get higher than 110, so you need to be very comfortable speaking and writing about other people's ideas, right? So write 3 250-word summaries each week. Nobody needs to grade these. You're just doing this as self-study. Remember, when you get to the writing part of my course, I will encourage you to complete writing practice tests, both independent and integrated writing practice tests, and I will evaluate and score those. Now, the next thing, you should be giving 3 to 5 60-second oral summaries each week. of these listening and reading passages. Again, you're trying to get used to talking about other people's ideas. Even, I suggest, you record yourself. You want to record yourself explaining the main and most important supporting points of these listening and reading passages. And as you record it, of course, you record it so you can listen to it again, maybe wait a few days, listen to it again, and then pay attention in 3 areas. Pay attention to your delivery, which means pronunciation. Are you mispronouncing any particular words? Do you have any word stress or intonation problems or any problems with pacing? So pay attention to that. Pay attention to your language use. That means your grammar and your vocabulary usage. That's also very important. You see what I'm saying? And finally, you should pay attention to topic development. Have you left out any important points from the listening or the reading passages? Right? Did you completely and accurately explain the information? Are you focusing too much on minor details, which means you don't want to do that, right? So you can pay attention to your topic development also. So if you do that, I'm telling you, if you do that with 40 listening practice tests, you do this practice with 70 reading practice tests, that gives you many, many hours of practice. And it's really using English in a more authentic sense. You're not just answering A, B, and C, and D questions. See, a lot of websites out there, they just have you take a whole bunch of practice tests and then magically you get better. That's not what I like to do in my online course. I want to help students develop long-term academic English language proficiency. And that's what my course does. You can ask anybody who takes my course, they will tell you that. There's no magic formula. If you use my course, if you use it over 1, 2, maybe 3 months, and you're using my course for 2 or 3 hours a day, I guarantee you will get better. All right, now, once you've done the listening and the reading sections, then you should do the writing and the speaking parts of my course. That's what you do next. And what does that look like? Let's go back to the website here. Let me go ahead. I'm going to open up a new screen capture here. Okay, this is going back to my course here. Let me make it a little bigger here so we can see what's going on. So you can see the listening. You can see here we're getting into the reading part. Here you can see all my speed reading tests. Then we're going to writing. So this is the hard work where you really need to pay attention. So the first few lessons I will be giving you some tips on how to prepare for the integrated and the independent writing tasks, but that's not really it. Doing is absolutely the best. You ever heard this quote? Seeing is good, hearing is better, but doing is best. Right? So my website actually I have about 40 independent writing practice tests, so once the time is right, once you get to this portion of my course, I recommend start sending me writing practice tests on a weekly basis, maybe 3 or 4 writing practice tests a week. You want to do this for maybe a month or more, and then you'll start getting feedback. The same thing with integrated writing. If you see here, I have integrated writing topics. I have over 43 of them. I categorize these in terms of easy, medium, and difficult. I would advise most students to focus on the easy first, then get into my medium difficulty ones, and then go to the really hard integrated writing practice tests. So, and after you take an integrated writing practice test and get your score, you can go back and look at the transcripts. You can see the listening scripts, you can see the reading passage again, of course, and then you can look at what you did or what you didn't do so well, and so on. Now, even, I got one more recommendation here. So with the writing, the one thing that can help a lot of students, it's usually a good idea to have at least one of your independent and one of your integrated writing practice tests error corrected by me. I will definitely do that. It's not cheap, I'm going to be honest with you. It can take me up to 1 to 2 hours just to read and correct one essay and to give the students comments. Because what my goal is, if I do an error correction video of your writing, and you've probably seen these at YouTube, I've posted many of these at YouTube, my goal is to rewrite the essay and show what the student needs to do to improve the integrated or the independent writing task to a perfect score of 30. So I do what's called an evaluation or an analysis of the student's writing, and when I'm done with the evaluation, I will tell the student specific lessons in the grammar and in the writing parts of my course that the student should focus on in order to improve. So this type of analysis, it comes at a price. If anybody wants to use this service, you do not have to. If you join my course, you're under no obligation to use the service, but if you do, it costs an additional $50 for one essay to do this error correction. So I apologize. It's not cheap. It's very effective. It's very helpful for my students, but I have to actually charge a premium for this kind of service because it is very, very time consuming and it requires a lot of experience. Most TOEFL teachers out there could not even do this type of analysis. Remember that I'm a professor at California State University, San Bernardino. I've been teaching for the English department there for 22 years. I've also been teaching TOEFL preparation for the same length of time. So I have all of these decades of experience that I can apply to helping my students improve their writing. Right? So let's keep going. Now the next thing is, as you're working in the writing, you should also be focusing in the speaking section. And again, you should be sending me speaking topics. You should be sending me practice tests on a day-to-day basis. A lot of websites do not allow this. If you go to Magoosh, if you go to Toefl, if you go to the TOEFL iBT online, TOEFL whatever, they don't allow you to submit practice tests and get scores on those things. They don't allow, many of them don't allow that, but I do allow this, and believe it or not, for my subscription of $45 a month, you can send me one speaking and one writing practice test every day. Every day, think about it. And you'll even see during this video today, you will see me grade 2 speaking practice tests that were submitted from my online TOEFL students, and you'll actually see the kind of comments I like to give them. But obviously, in order to get a high score of 110, you need to get a very high score in the speaking section. So as you're sending me speaking practice tests, I will give you audio comments telling you what you need to do in order to improve your delivery, language use, and also topic development. Now, a lot of students really like a lot of practice. Notice here, it has these independent speaking tasks. These actually appeared on the TOEFL exam. So practice test number 11 all the way through practice test 30, all of these appeared on the TOEFL test. Now I have additional practice here. I have 300 speaking topics in total. If you click here, you can see what they are. I'll click on them right now. So here's an additional 300 topics. Look at this, goes from 31 all the way down to 300. Let's look at what the 300th one is. Okay, here's number 300. Here's my 300 topics. It says, compare your study habits as a child or teenager with your study habits as an adult. Use specific examples and details. And a lot of students have seen these topics on the TOEFL exam, no joke. So what you do is, if you want to be really accurate here, is you can just pick a number in your brain. You say, okay, I'm going to answer Michael's speaking topic number 120. So you go to 120, right? You take about 15 minutes to write down some notes, then you record yourself answering the question, then you email it to me, then I will give you a score. And I'll give you feedback and tell you what works and what doesn't work. So, that's it. So that's pretty much the whole course. Now let me go back, give me a quick second, I'm going to go back to these notes that I've been giving you guys here. So let me open up. Let me try this one more time. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, make sure I'm here. Okay, give me a quick second here. I'm almost right there. Got it. Okay, here we are. We're back again. Okay, so once you've completed the writing and the speaking parts of my course, right? So basically, I've given, in order to get 110, to answer Jiangha's question, I've really focused in 6 areas. Complete a TOEFL level practice test or actual TOEFL exam. Discussion results with Michael at mbuckoff@aol.com. And meanwhile, get as much exposure to English as possible. And then tip number 5 is study the vocabulary, pronunciation, and the grammar lessons in my course. Then 6, complete the listening and the reading sections. And remember to focus a lot on note-taking and write and speak about that information. Then number 7, complete the writing and speaking parts of my course. Now remember, this is not Magoosh. This is not Toefl. You don't just watch a whole bunch of videos and magically get a high score. Forget that. No, you need to send me writing and speaking practice, hopefully on a daily basis. The more practice that you complete, the better the feedback I can give you and the more improvements you're going to make. So remember, this is not a course where you just watch a whole bunch of videos on writing and speaking strategies. If you want that, you can take Toefl, you can take some other course, maybe Magoosh. But if you're taking my course, you're expected to complete writing and speaking practice regularly. And the students who do it regularly are the ones who make the most improvements. You see what I'm saying? Okay, now let's go to step 8. In the 8th step, you should complete another full-length iBT practice test. You should do one more before, I'm going to say before taking the actual TOEFL exam. You see what I'm saying? Why are you doing this? You don't want to invest $200 in taking the practice test or taking a full-length or taking a actual TOEFL exam before you know where you are. So remember that a TOEFL practice test, for example, from Score Nexus, they're between $30 and $40, and that's a lot cheaper than spending $200 on taking the TOEFL exam. And believe me, I get emails from students who have taken the TOEFL 7, 8, 9. I talked to a student one time, he had taken the TOEFL exam 16 times. Wow, $200 each time. How much money is that, right? So if he should just be taking practice tests, he should take a practice test. If the practice test tells him that his overall score is close to 110 and his subtotal scores are all high and meet the requirements of the university or the job, if that gives him good information, then yes, he should invest in taking the actual TOEFL exam. You see what I'm saying? So, to sum up this part of the video, if you can complete and go through and follow these 8 suggestions I just listed here, I think that you will have a good chance, I think, of getting higher than 110. But remember, if you make a goal this high, you have to remember the no pain, no gain kind of thing. It is very painful. It takes a lot of study, a lot of practice on a day-to-day basis. This is not something you do for 1 or 2 weeks. You need to really dig in and prepare probably for several months. Some students study TOEFL for years, they never get 110, right? So you have to be realistic. It's going to be very intense. You have to be very methodical in your study. And that's all I want to say about that particular topic. So I'm now going to move on to my next topic. Okay, let's go back to the webcam here for a minute. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to double check over at YouTube right now. I'm going to see if there's any questions that you guys might be asking. So give me a quick second here. Okay, we got a question here from Javid. Your question is, when during the listening section should I take notes? You say I should take notes, so I would change that to subject, verb, inversion, word order, so you make it as a question. So during the listening section, as soon as the lecture begins, I would start taking notes. Remember though, you should be taking notes during, if you think about it, the reading, the listening, speaking, and writing sections. Note-taking is important for all 4 parts of the test. So during the listening section, take notes as soon as the lecture begins. And you don't try to write down what's called the sentence level method of note-taking. You try to write down full sentences based on what you hear. You're trying to write down as you hear it what the main point is, what some of the support points are, and maybe some examples that the speaker gives. So during the speaking, my recommendation is, see if I can illustrate this to you for a minute. During the integrated speaking, when you're taking notes, Javid, I recommend that you draw a line through a piece of paper. Take a piece of paper like this. Let me show you what I would do here. It'll kind of look like this. So in the paper, draw a line through the middle, and they do provide you paper. So what you want to do here is on the left side put R, which means reading. So as soon as you get into the integrated speaking and you read that passage, you need to write down what the main point is. And then you want to try to write down maybe 2 or 3 support points based on what you have read. So that's going to be very, very important. Again, when you go to the listening should be on the right side. You should be writing down what the main point is and what the main point of the listening part of the section is. So you're trying to get down some of the major supporting points from both the reading and the listening passage. So you're using your notes as you prepare for the speaking section, right? And then once it says begin speaking, you don't have to just memorize anything. You simply look at your notes and begin explaining how the reading and the listening are connected. See what I'm saying? You should do exactly the same thing during the writing section of the test. You have notes for the reading, you have notes for the listening. You see what I'm saying? So those are some of my comments on that. So what you want to do now, Javid, is you should be watching TV, listening to the radio. If you go to NPR.org, National Public Radio, if you go to TED Talks, if you go to YouTube, you should be comfortable watching videos and then taking notes on those main points. Right? And the more you practice note-taking now, the more complete and the more accurate your note-taking will be on the Toefl exam. Right? So let me just give you one more tip. During the reading section, what a lot of students will do is the reading passages, typically you'll have maybe 7 or 8 paragraphs, and with each paragraph you want to write down on a sheet of paper maybe 2 or 3 key words that help explain the purpose of that paragraph. So then what you're doing is you're creating a mind map. You're creating a mind map of the reading passage, so when you start answering the questions, you don't have to keep rereading the passage. You simply look at the outline that you made of the reading passage. And remember that your goal here is to improve your reading speed to 350 words per minute. If you do that, it will be very easy to follow my tips. If you're reading at 100 words per minute, you will get killed during the reading section. You will get killed during the writing and the speaking section. You're not going to have enough time. So that's why it's critical to increase that reading speed now before you take the Toefl exam, because you need to be able to go through the information quickly and to take notes quickly. All right? Okay, so now let me move over to the next thing here. So the next thing I need to do right now is I need to enroll someone into my online Toefl course. I'm going to do that right now. That's the next step. So this will only take me about 3 minutes. So when students enroll in my course, typically they will go to PayPal, they will create a PayPal subscription, and then I will actually enroll them. And I need to create right now what's called a password and a username for the student who joined my course today. So I'm going over to my website and I'm adding a new user. So PayPal automatically will notify me when somebody makes a payment, right? So I go over here and I can see the payment that was actually made here. So this student joined my course today, so he gets unlimited access for 30 days. And I'm going to send him a welcome email in just a minute. So the name, this will just take me a few minutes here. Let me see. Yeah, this guy is interesting. He's actually from Iran, and Iran doesn't even have, or doesn't accept PayPal there. So what he did is he had a friend outside of the country who made the payment on his behalf. That's kind of what he did. Okay, now I need to send him a quick email. And in just a minute, like I said, if you see the title for this live discussion thread, is the last thing I will do is I will score 2 independent speaking tasks submitted from my online students. That's what I'm going to do here in just a minute. Okay, go back to my course here. Okay, I think I have it. So students who join my course, their username and their password is their email, right, or are their email, and then I will give them an enrollment key that they use. So when they go to my course, they do 3 things. They type in the username, they type in the password, they type in the enrollment key, and then they have access to all of my lessons. So that's what I'm going to send him right now by email. I'm going to send this student his username and password and enrollment key. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, so I go back. Now I'm going to send him a welcome email so then he knows how to get access to my lessons. I'm almost done, then I will move on. Okay, so he has his enrollment key. Okay, I need to change one more thing. I think we have it. Okay, so I just enrolled him in my online TOEFL course. Okay, so let's go back to the speaking now. Okay, now I'm going to double check one more time, see if there's any other questions. So I think we're okay here. Okay, now the next thing I want to do now is I'm going to download some independent speaking practice tests. So the first student here is Marcelo. Let me write this down so I can remember whose comments I'm replying to. So Marcelo completed integrated speaking practice test number 20. I think this one is about glaciers. Let's see how he answered this particular question. And before I listen to it, if there's any teachers who are watching this video, remember that whenever a student does an independent or integrated speaking practice test, it's important to have the rubric, the TOEFL iBT rubrics, right in front of you. I know that most of us have memorized them, we know what they are, but it really makes it a fair, a very consistent way to score the student speaking, because the standards are very clear what students need to do when it comes to delivery, language use, and topic development. So as they speak, if you listen to them, it'll be much easier to score it if you're looking at that rubric as you listen to the response. So that's just a tip for other TOEFL teachers who might be watching this video. Okay, so I think I am ready here. Actually, no, I need to get the rubric here. Give me a second. I want to make sure I'm looking at the rubric before. Now, of course, the other important thing is to make sure that I need to be really familiar with the reading passage and the lecture. In this case, the lecture, this is, I think, speaking task number 6. It's listening, speaking, academic, and I need to make sure that the student is not missing any important points from that lecture. Okay, so I have the rubric in front of me. And here's what the student says.
The listening passage explains the 3 theories regarding to the tornado formation. The first theory is about the major supercell thunderstorm, in which the storm starts to rotate and the winds increase its speed in the highest point. The second...
I can't resist. I told you something yesterday about using where, in which, and every time I tell you something about grammar, you exactly remember it and you use it correctly. So yeah, in which, blah, blah, blah. That worked perfectly there because you weren't talking about a specific geographical location.
There is all the circulation of cold air descending. In that theory, the warm air goes to the top of the storm, and the vortex starts developing as it rotates.
Okay.
The last theory is about the land storms.
And what about storms?
That a kind of storm form in the land, and there are a weaker version of the tornadoes, and doesn't cause too much damage.
Yeah, that last part you could have done a little bit better job with, right? But let's go and listen to it one more time.
The listening passage explains the 3 theories regarding to the tornado formation.
Now, the introduction is perfect. So you're using the voice marker, the lecture. You say the lecture explains. I like how you're using the simple present to explain the information. Then you say the 3 theories of tornado formation, right? So that was good. So your introduction is perfect, and then you're using the first, second, third as a way to organize the 3 important points from the lecture. So your organization, very, very good.
The first theory is about the major supercell thunderstorm, in which the storm starts to rotate and the winds increase its speed in the highest exploit.
Okay, good.
The second theory is about the circulation of cold air descending. In that theory, the word
Yeah, but what's the main point? What is the name of that second theory there? So you're a little bit incomplete in your response right here.
goes to the top of the star, and the vortex starts developing as it rotates. The last theory is about the land storms. That a kind of storm form in the land, and there are weaker
But what is the actual name of this third theory?
version of the tornadoes and doesn't cause too much damage.
Okay, so, and give me just a quick second here. Let me look at the lecture for just a quick second here. This is what you did not really do. You could do a little bit better. Is that the second theory is called the bottom-down theory, so you had a little bit of problems explaining that idea, right? The last theory, it says tornadoes are created by supercells, and they're also created by other means, such as land spouts. So you didn't really mention the land spouts and then how they form within squall lines, right? So I think you weren't 100% complete in your explanation, I think, of the theories that you explained. So not exactly perfect. So you had some trouble, I think, re-explaining some of this information. And one thing here, everybody watching YouTube here, I just forgot something very critical. All of these comments that I'm giving to Marcelo, I forgot to record them. Wow. So he hasn't heard any of these things, so I need to start over for a minute here. Give me a second. Yeah, hi there. These comments are for Marcelo, and I am Michael, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass a Toefl iBT. I just listened to your integrated speaking practice test number 20. So I'm looking at how you did this. I'm looking at the rubrics right now. And if you want, I'm doing a live video feed today at YouTube. You can go to the video, and I evaluated your speaking also that way. But I think delivery, for the most part, I didn't notice any major problems with your pronunciation. I could understand everything that you were saying, and you had pretty good pacing. Intonation is not perfect, but you tried to vary your tone to some degree. Language use, I think overall you had pretty good control of your grammar and your vocabulary. Topic development, this is where I gave you the most comments today. I think that you didn't really completely, I think, explain, especially the second two theories, the bottom-down theory and then the last theory regarding tornadoes, and particularly about land spouts. So I don't think you included all the important information, so you had a weakness with topic development. So your score here, I'm going to put you at about 2.83 out of 4, 22 points out of 30 on this practice test. All right? Okay, so I just gave him his comments. He needs to know, right? Every student who does a practice test, they need to know what their score is and why they got the score they did. So I always like to do that. Okay, now I'm going to email him the comments I just gave him. So December 18th, and I'll put his name, and I'll put Marcelo December 18th. That's how I'll find his file when I look for it in just a minute to email it to him. I will send him a link to the speaking rubrics that I use to grade his essay, so he can click on that and review that. So he needs to get as much information as he can as to why he got the score that he did, because if he doesn't get the feedback, how does he make any adjustments? It becomes difficult for him to make those adjustments. Okay, I'm emailing him, and I am going back. I'm checking for any questions, so don't forget, if you guys have any questions. I know some people are shy, and remember that I'm not pressuring anybody to join my online TOEFL course today. You do not have to join my course. It doesn't matter to me. I teach enough students online anyway. I'm a full-time professor at California State University, San Bernardino. So don't feel like you're under pressure. If you want a high TOEFL score, if you're on a tight budget and you want to join my course, you can, but you don't have to, so don't worry about it. I don't want you to feel any pressure in that sense. Okay? Okay, so let me go on. So I just gave him comments, and now I have one more practice test that I need to grade today. And this is, I will call him El Rasta. Okay, I got it. Okay, this student is doing a post-test. My goodness, so this will be interesting. And he's already gone through all the pronunciation lessons in my online TOEFL course, and he wants to know now whether or not he has mastered the pronunciation of American English, right? So now, here's what I have to do. I have to do really a couple of different things here, and it's kind of complicated. And here's something else to think about too. Don't take an online TOEFL course that doesn't allow you to get your pronunciation evaluated, because a good bit of your score relies on how intelligible you are and how clearly you speak. And if your TOEFL iBT speaking specialist isn't going to help you with your pronunciation, then how are you going to get better? You see what I'm saying? Okay, so I have that. I opened up the, I have specific rubrics to grade his intelligibility. And now what he's going to do, he's going to actually read some paragraphs. So, and I'm going to give him feedback in those areas. So you don't need to worry about that. But you'll see what I'm going to do in just a minute. Okay, I have to go to the pronunciation area of my course first. Okay, I'm getting ready. Now I'm going to go to my email right now. So let's see. So reading passage. So let's do the reading passages first.
When two people are talking to each other, they tend to stand it.
Okay, so let me go back to my website here. And then, let me go back. I'm going to see if I can show you guys what it looks like here. So, he's going to be reading these passages. Okay, here we go.
When two people are talking to each other, they tend to stand a specific distance apart. Each person has an invisible boundary around his or her body into which other people might not come.
So not bad, so he's pretty good on his pacing, he's clearly pronouncing the words in there.
If someone pierces this boundary,
A little bit of trouble here, so if someone pierces this boundary, so you had a little bit of hesitation in there.
he will feel uncomfortable and move away to increase the distance between them.
Notice how he said move away, but not move away, so he's having some problems with blending the last sound of one word to the next sound of the next word. He needs to improve in that area.
The major exception is family members and other loved ones.
A little bit of trouble with the word major. The major exception. And remember, as I have to kind of take down some notes and give him some feedback in just a minute on what I think he needs to improve upon.
This personal distance is not due to body odor or bad breath, but because closeness lends a sense of intimacy that is at odds with your relationship to the other individual.
So that is at odds with the relationship to the other individual. So let's try his reading passage number 2.
Reading passage 2. Interestingly, the average personal distance varies from culture to
No, it's varies, so that's a word stress issue. He needs to say varies, and he's not pronouncing the V the way that he needs to. So word stress and the V consonant sound, I'm taking down notes.
culture. Americans tend to require more personal space than in other cultures. Therefore, if you try to get too close to an American during your conversation, he or she will feel that you are in his face and will try to back away. Try to be aware of this, so if the person to whom you're speaking backs away a little, don't try to close the gap.
Okay, so not bad. So he's now going to the third reading passage, but remember that my post-test, it focuses on not just passages, but also he needs to answer these 3 questions at the end also.
Reading passage 3. Also, try to avoid physical contact
See, it's that V, so consistently he's not pronouncing that V with enough vibration, so that's a comment I need to give him in just a minute.
while they're speaking, since this might also lead to discomfort. Touching is
Discomfort.
a bit too intimate for casual acquaintances. So don't put your arm around his or her shoulder, don't touch his or her face, or hold his or her hand. Shaking hands when you initially meet or part is acceptable, but this is only momentary.
Not bad, so his word stress was okay here. Okay, now I need to download the next part of it, so I'm done with this. Now give me a quick second here. I'm going to get rid of this for just a minute. I'll go back to video for just a second. I don't want you to see any private information. This is why I'm doing this. So I'm going to go back to the email and download the next part, which is he's now just going to answer specific questions. So I'll tell you which ones. You don't really need to see this part. I would just say the first question he's going to answer is, who is your best friend? Why is this person important to you? And then number 2, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What will you be doing? And then what is your favorite season of the year? Fall, winter, spring, or summer? Be as specific as possible. Because really, I need to get really 2 things. I like him to read a passage, and that can give me some information about his pronunciation, but also by answering these questions spontaneously, it gives me additional information, not just about his pronunciation, but about his language use, including grammar and also vocabulary, right? So I need to evaluate all of these things in order to give him an accurate score. The question is he ready to get 26 on the speaking section? That's what he wants to know. Is his pronunciation clear enough to reach that goal? That's what I need to tell him, right? That's what he wants to know. Now, before I move on here, I need to start a video, and I'm actually going to talk directly to him now, and I will send him these comments by email. Yeah, hi there. These comments are for El Rasta or Luis, and I am Michael, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass the Toefl IBT. And I do have some lessons that I think you can focus on, but I want to go ahead and listen to you answer these different questions. Okay, so let's start off with best friend. I'm going to download that one first. All right?
My best friend is my friend Jose. I met him when we were at school.
I would say my best friend is Jose, whom I met. Instead of using two separate sentences, it's actually better to combine those two sentences. That demonstrates a little bit more advanced grammar.
In high school, and he's a short little guy. He's thin, brown eyes, pretty much the average Mexican. But he's a very nice person. He's easygoing and he's very polite.
Okay.
For instance, I remember one of our teachers tried to punish us for something we didn't know. We were accused to copy at one of the exams.
I would say we were accused of copying or cheating during one of the exams. So that was a problem using either of versus to. So I think there of works better than to. So be careful about your word choice.
So he pretty much talked our way to get a second chance.
Okay.
And because of him, we all the group we were able to pass the exam.
I would say we're able to pass the exam, so a word stress issue there. Or the examination.
Good memory I have from my friend Jose is that we were like walking at the beach, and police officers stopped us just to make some questions because some guy just robbed an American girl purse, and he pretty much explained him and that we were just students.
He pretty much explained to him. So again, there seems to be a possible problem with prepositions. Sometimes you're omitting the preposition when you need it, or when you use it, you're not using the correct preposition. So I would recommend El Rasta, go to the grammar part of my course. I do have a lesson on prepositions, and maybe to help you, which might be good, is record the sentences using the prepositions. You can make some recordings of them and then download them or put them onto your either iPad or your phone and practice listening to those sample sentences so you can get used to using prepositions in the right parts of the sentences when you're speaking.
And we were just hanging out. And that's why I consider him as my best friend.
And that's why I consider him my best friend. So again, a word stress issue there. So I'm gonna take down some notes here. So as I'm listening to your response, I'm trying to figure out what are some areas in your pronunciation you still need to work on, and I will give you my final assessment when I'm done listening to it, right? Okay, so now let's go to where's your favorite season of the year? Let's listen to this one. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I'm not hearing anything. I don't know. I didn't get anything, so where's the favorite season of the year? I didn't hear any sound on that one. Let me go to the next one. Maybe it's my computer.
In 5 years, I see myself living.
No, it's not my computer. So for whatever reason, one of the audio files that you sent me, El Rasta, it did not have any audio in it. But it doesn't matter. You don't need to redo it. You've given me plenty of information about your speaking and pronunciation through the 3 voice recordings that you sent. So I have enough information.
In the USA, working as a nurse. In 5 years, I see myself living in the USA, working as a nurse.
Let me go back.
I see myself living in the USA.
Living in the USA, not living at the USA. So that recurring problem with prepositions is still kind of coming up in here. So this is not a pronunciation issue, but it's still something I want to bring out, right?
Working as a nurse at the critical care unit. My wife will be working also, but she will be at the hemodialysis unit because she's also a nurse.
Okay.
We will work at the night shift because we both love it. And
So we're working at the night shift. So when you have compound nouns like that, you want to stress both words equally. She's working at the night shift, night shift. So put stress on both of those words.
my kids will go to the elementary school. No, we don't have to pay for a fancy.
Let me go back.
And my kids will go to the elementary school. No, we don't have to pay for a fancy school, but we have a nice school.
It's a little bit of trouble in there. Looks like you might have did a voiceover or something there.
Public nice school for them. And I will be studying my bachelor's.
I would be.
I will be studying my.
I would be not studying, but I would be studying.
My bachelor's in nursing science, and maybe a master's degree. We're gonna buy a Jeep. We want a Liberty, black Liberty Jeep, and we will start to save money to get retired. That's how I see and where I see.
We'll save money.
I see myself in 5 years. In 5 years.
Okay, now let's take a look and see. I need to go into my online Toefl course for a minute. How many? So I got 6 minutes. I want to try and make sure my auto recording is not too long. I don't want to bore you too much here, but give me a quick second here. So I want to go over to my online course. I'm going to go to the pronunciation area of my course. And I will tell you what specific lessons I think that you need to review in order to improve. Okay, give me a quick second. I'm going over to my website right now. But the other thing too is I'm going to give you your intelligibility score here too before I forget about that. Okay, so let's look at that first. Okay, I will put the link to your intelligibility score in the email I'm sending you. So the question is, on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 is high beginner and then 7 is a near native speaker, where are you on this scale, right? And then why? So I'm going to put you right now in the high intermediate level, and you can compare that with what you did in the beginning when you did the pretest. I'm going to put you at about 4.8 out of 7, and you can take a look at what that means. If you're almost in the 5 areas, so to be honest with you, I think at this point you have not completely mastered the pronunciation and speaking of American English. You still have some minor problems. Either it might be a grammar problem, it could be a language use issue, a vocabulary, it could be a pronunciation issue, but you're almost there, but not quite. Usually students who score 5.1 or higher on my pronunciation post-test, usually that is a pretty good goal, which means they're ready to score higher than 26 points. So if I look at the description of 4, it says here, you have obvious accent and pronunciation variations, but they don't interfere, they're not too distracting. You have some occasional errors when you're speaking, and you have pretty good varied vocabulary, and you can answer questions with sustained and connected discourse, right? That's kind of where you are right now. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to go over to my actual website here. Okay, here it is right here. I got it. So now let's take a look at specific vowel and consonant sounds that I think you need to improve in order to get better, right? Okay, give me a quick second on that. Okay, here we are. So, let me make this a little bit bigger so I can look at it here. Okay, so I'm basing my analysis on the 3 paragraphs that you read in the beginning, and then you spent about 4 or 5 minutes answering those specific personal experience questions. Okay, one of the lessons I want you to work on, to continue to work on, it's that vowel sound. It's lesson number 12, the and the schwa sound. So Luke, crumbs, and what is the other one here? Could vowel sound. So that U vowel sound, I think you have not completely mastered that sound yet. And sometimes you have some mispronunciations. They creep up into your speaking when you do that. Okay, what else? The next one is, I think, speak clearly, lesson number 16. The major versus the measure consonants, I think you can still work on those sounds a little bit more. I think that's going to be good. Also, pronunciation lesson number 14, particularly focus on the V. V, van, vine, very. So you need to pronounce that V, especially when it's in the beginning of the word. You want to pronounce that with a little more vibration. So that's something that you can still work on. Okay, let me keep going here. Let me see. So I think everything else is not bad. You seem to have pretty good understanding of how to pronounce a lot of the sounds. The next one, I think, is word stress. I mentioned this a few times as I was listening to your pronunciation post-test, but review. Take a look at lessons number 29, 30, 31, and 32. These lessons focus on word stress. I think you can probably work on that a little bit more. And then finally, I think thought groups and blending, lesson number 41, 42, 43, and 44. So I think you still need to work on that pacing, the thought groups, and the blending area. I think that will also help you to speak more clearly. So those are some things that you can still do and you can still work on in order to improve. Does that make sense, Rasta? So my final comments. I would say just keep moving on with my course. You're doing a wonderful job. I would recommend, in addition to using my online Toefl course, you need to do more work with your speaking and your pronunciation. So continue each week watching movies in English, listen to the radio in English, find opportunities as much as you can to speak English whenever you can. Alrighty? So anyway, El Rasta, thank you very much for completing that particular pretest. Okay, so now I'm talking directly to my YouTube viewers now. I'm done talking to El Rasta directly. So he just completed the pretest, or actually the pronunciation post-test. And as you can see, it's pretty extensive. When students do a pronunciation pretest or post-test, I give them a complete assessment of their intelligibility of American English. That's exactly what I do. And as you can see here, he's doing very well with his speaking and pronunciation, but he still has a few lingering issues that he needs to solve. So now I'm going to send him the comments that you guys just heard at YouTube. I'm going to email them to him. Now, if you guys have any questions, you can certainly post those at the chat at my YouTube live feed right now, and I will take a look at those in just a minute. So give me a second. So I'm going to now email him back my comments about his post-test. Okay, here we go. Now he also wants to know his intelligibility and why and how I scored it like I did. So I will also send him a link to the intelligibility scale that I showed you guys at YouTube. He needs to see that. He needs to understand, again, why did I give him the score I did? What are the specific problems that he needs to work on in order to speak more clearly? That's what he wants to know. He's paying me to tell him this information, so that's what I will do to him. Okay, so now I'm emailing him back. I think we are good here. So I think that we are pretty much done here. Let me check. Once I've sent that email, I think I can wrap up this particular video. Okay, I think that's it. If there's no more questions, that is it. So I will stop for today. So everybody, YouTube, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to all you guys. Thank you for watching my videos. If you know anybody else who is interested in improving their academic English language proficiency, if they want to get a higher TOEFL score, you can tell them about my YouTube channel. All right. Also, for more information about my online TOEFL course, you can go to onlinetoeflcourse.com.